honor to welcome our next speaker to the stage. Some of you might know him from his films like American History X or Fight Club. I know there are a lot of fans out there, right? Fight Club, come on. All right, so his latest venture is Crowdrise, a DIY fundraising platform. Here to share more is Edward Norton.
Hey, good afternoon. This was an impromptu invitation, so I'm gonna do this a little bit free form and share with you what we've been working on, which is to some degree a work in progress. I think if a year ago anybody had suggested engagement with social networking platforms to me, I'd have been accelerating in the other direction very rapidly. And in fact, for most of the period in which social networking has become such an explosive force in our culture, I've sort of been like the Heisman Trophy to it. I've been keeping it I've been stiff-arming the whole idea of anybody knowing where I am and what I'm doing, and I had not from the outside observed in it anything that I felt was a way that I could substantively engage with it to get anything done, and the last year, a confluence of experiences for me have converted me to some degree. On both the potency in various social networking ideas and the fun of it, I have to admit. So a couple of different things I had observed over time. I'm involved with various nonprofit organizations on the board level, some conservation organizations, one of the largest nonprofit housing developers in the United States, some arts groups. And I had definitely observed as a fundraiser for those organizations that despite the dynamism programmatically of what a lot of these organizations were doing, and in many cases the sophistication of their philanthropic model, they were not necessarily effectively using contemporary web-based social networking tools to enhance in a meaningful way their fundraising efforts and their efforts to get people engaged and supporting their efforts. In many cases, what a lot of organizations were doing amounted to digitizing their annual report, but not really employing dynamic, cutting-edge use of the internet to engage a new generation of people in a productive way. I also found over time that I was noticing that younger people, people of my generation and certainly even younger, were obviously adopting very fervently a lot of these tools, but struggling perhaps to do the opposite, find ways to use them in a substantive way, to cut through sort of the white noise of social chatter and make these tools productive. I had a strong sensation that lots of people I knew were looking for ways to bring their skill sets to bear on causes that they cared about, but not necessarily figuring out how to uplink with the larger issues that they cared about through their skills in the cyber world and through social media. And in the midst of a lot of those observations, last year I had an experience for an organization that I'm the head of the board of called the Maasai Wilderness Conservation Trust, which is a small community conservation organization in Africa. We decided to try to go a little further ourselves in terms of outreach and fundraising. And we orchestrated an event called the Maasai Marathon. We had a couple of these young Maasai guys from this community in Kenya that I've worked with for many years come over and with me and a team of other people run the New York Marathon using a sponsorship-driven campaign to raise money. And we essentially did this with a couple of partners. We built out a website, a very dynamic, interactive website, and engineered a campaign on Twitter and Facebook, and using traditional media along with those social network tools. And we were successful with this campaign beyond our wildest expectations. We initiated it in early August. We launched the site in right after Labor Day, and in the 8 weeks between Labor Day and the marathon, we raised about $1.2 million, mostly through small donations on the site. In the wake of it, we had so many organizations, not only ones I'm involved with, but others, as well as people of note, people with public platforms coming up to us and saying, could you walk us through how you did that? That we ended up circling up, the four of us who had partnered up on it, and saying, we felt pretty confident that we could build it out into an open source, very user-friendly and very robust platform that used much of the same strategies, methodologies, and interactive use of social networking ideas, and we thought we could make a template for other people to do what we had put quite a labor-intensive effort into doing ourselves. And that was what Crowdrise grew out of. The Masai Marathon was to some degree a beta test for us of Crowdrise. We took most of what we employed and a lot of what we learned and built it out into this site. The basic idea, the basic goals of Crowdrise are to provide a platform that works in complementary ways in multiple directions. We think that it's a site that for any organization that has an existing base of supporters, we want to help them make that existing base a more productive base of fundraisers. In essence, do what the Obama campaign notably did very well, which was convert grassroots donor bases into grassroots fundraising bases, leverage your base of donors into a fundraising team that can raise money for you. For corporations or involved in corporate social responsibility campaigns, we think that it's a great way to create team efforts at fundraising. For organizations that specifically work with volunteer networks, we've tried to push this idea that you shouldn't have to just run a marathon or do a walkathon for breast cancer. That volunteering itself as an activity is something that you can convert also into fundraising. That the idea of sponsored volunteerism, getting young people who don't necessarily have money to donate, but who give of their time, are involved with service organizations, the opportunity to, in essence, in the same way that someone who runs a marathon does, to reach out to their circles of friends and families and say, this is something I'm doing, back my effort by sponsoring my volunteerism. And then, of course, centrally for the individual, we recognized that what we did with the Masai Marathon was, in terms of the web engineering, the engineering of the site, getting corporate sponsors to donate gear for prizes and contests and incentives and things like that. This kind of engineering was out of the reach of most individuals. So we thought we could essentially build that platform for people so that they could use it in a 15-minute setup kind of a time profile at no cost, and let any individual build a very dynamic personal fundraising campaign for something that they cared about. So the site is set up to create, in essence, power in numbers. It's we're not live, so I can't actually walk you through the site, but the site brings people together to kind of create the power of the crowd. It's very robust. It lets you surf through it obviously you can go straight to anything that you know is going on, but it also has a broad crowd component. It guides people in how to start their own fundraisers, guides them in how to get sponsorship for volunteering, guides them in how to use corporate sponsors and their gear for incentive-based programs. It has a fun sort of a points and awards system, sort of like frequent flyer miles, but Crowdrise fundraising points. Individuals can set up their own profile page. Our conviction is that a lot of social networking is in essence about personal narrative. If you think about why most people are using Facebook or Twitter or anything, it's because people take pride in what they're doing. They think that their personal narrative matters and they want to share it with people. Our extension of that is simply to encourage people to sort of plant a flag, raise a fist, take pride in what they care about, what they're engaged in, and engage other people in it. So it's designed on a personal level for you to be able to set up, in essence, your own profile, focusing on what are the various projects that you work on and allowing other people to go into there, investigate what you're doing, donate directly through the site, and for you to be able to easily send that around to your contact lists if you're doing a specific fundraiser for any one of the projects. It's project-based, so this is an example where Glenn Hansard, the Irish singer, decided he wanted to raise enough money to buy our Maasai organization 2 Land Rovers. So he set up a very specific campaign to raise enough money for a truck, and he's been sending this around to his fan base and encouraging people to join his team and help him fundraise, which has been extremely successful. He's actually raised at this point over $50,000 in the last couple weeks. And this is what we really like about it, is that it allows people, in essence, to join each other's teams and raise money, creating, in essence, a massive phone tree effect. And there's an enormous amount of interactivity, ability to communicate with each other, award each other points for good efforts, and there's a lot of sort of senseless fun involved in it as well. We've had, just on a whim, one of my partners put up a thing on the homepage. Basically, among the various choices you had, it said, check out this picture of a napkin. And we had like 10,000 hits on the link that says, check out our cool picture of a napkin. And an astonishing number of people actually sent us their own photographs of a napkin. So now we have, along with the substance of the site, we also have an impressive collection of tens of thousands of napkins. And that sort of sensibility pervades the site. And we think, not to be corny, but that fundraising and activism and engagement should be fun. It shouldn't be something that you do for any other reason, that it enhances your life and engages you with other fun people. So we've tried very hard to move beyond, I should say, some of what we saw in this space that we thought was functional but very dry and utilitarian. We wanted to take the best of why people participate in Twitter, Facebook, things like that, and bring that sensibility, bring that sense of fun and community and competition to the personal philanthropy and activism space. And we're excited about it. We have very, very quickly had success with a number of things. Very large organizations in all sectors, from Conservation International to Alzheimer's.org, down to very small community-scale organizations like this one Detroit effort to build a skate park. We're finding that organizations at all levels are completely ecstatic about this. They're coming to us in droves for guidance, but in truth, I think they're finding that it's really extremely easy for the average intern to set up a very compelling campaign for any organization in about 15 minutes. We're actually getting a lot of phone calls from organizations that we haven't even engaged with saying, who are you and why are we getting checks through Crowdrise, and we're saying it just means that somebody out there who supports you has gone and set up a fundraiser and started raising funds for you, and they say that's pretty much the best thing ever. How can we take this further? We have a long way to go with it. We've just launched it within the last 2 weeks, but as I said, I think we feel that it can work for the individual. We feel that it can work for the nonprofit organization. We feel that it works to enhance volunteerism, and we're pretty excited about it. We think, I said to somebody at one point that I picked up some Paul Newman's spaghetti sauce a few weeks ago, and it had they apparently Newman's Own has now contributed over $250 million in net profits to charitable organizations. I think amongst the four of us who started this, we would call it victory if we were able to look and say, that nonprofit organizations had raised over $100 million through people's participation in Crowdrise. I would be willing to stack that up against any award anyone wanted to give me for anything I could ever do in the movies. I think that would be incredible, and I think that would, for me, represent my ultimate conversion to the conviction that all of this social networking experimentation has actually led towards something substantive and productive and authentically enhancing the quality of life in our society. So check it out, and if you have questions, feel free to ask some of us backstage, and check out the site. But we're very enthusiastic about it, and thanks for listening.